If you own a fixer-upper in Burlington, there is a very real chance that the next dollar you spend on it is a mistake. And that's not because your house has low value, but it's because the second you start fixing it for the wrong buyer, you can very easily destroy the value that actually matters. See, that ugly kitchen or that peeling wallpaper, the outdated flooring, the beat up basement, the overall just tired look or feel, it might be something you feel a bit embarrassed by. And to the wrong buyer, it looks like a problem. But to the right buyer, it looks like profit. And it looks very attractive. And if you market your house the normal way, you can waste weeks, you can burn cash, you can drag yourself through a lot of stress and still miss the exact right people who would have paid the strongest for it in the first place. That's the trap. You see, if your house needs work, the advice you're probably hearing sounds something like, you gotta paint this, you gotta patch it up, you gotta freshen it up, you gotta clean up, you gotta declutter, you gotta do the floors, you gotta have a new kitchen, you gotta make it look more presentable. And that advice often sounds very reasonable and it sounds safe. It's not horrible advice in some cases, but it often is, if you're not careful, it's something that's going to become very expensive. It's going to become an expensive mistake. Because before you go spending even $1 on any of this stuff, you need to answer at least one important question. And that is, who should actually be buying my property? That's the question that changes everything. Because if your real optimal buyer is not a polished retail buyer, which is very often the case, then why are you spending money trying to impress one? Why are you trying to turn your house into a half-finished version of something that was never supposed to be? That's how you ultimately lose. Because the buyer's looking for that really nicely turnkey product. They're going to see through the little patch and paints and little touch-ups that you did. So if you spend money trying to attract the wrong buyer, you waste time doing work you never need to do, and you drag out a sale that could have been much simpler if you had positioned it properly from the start. That's going to be very stressful. That's going to cost you lots of money. So here's the part that stings the most probably, is you can go through all that effort and not get paid at all for it. Because real estate does not reward just effort, it rewards the right strategy. You can go through all that pain and actually get less for it. So if your strategy is wrong, all that work, all that cleanup, paint, patchwork, all the stress, all the time, all the energy, it can just become a very expensive distraction. And if your Burlington area fixer-upper already feels kind of heavy, then the last thing you need is to accidentally turn it into even a heavier project. And that's exactly what happens very often when you follow generic advice. Now, instead of selling the house, you're chasing contractors, you're making dump runs, you're pricing materials, you're debating cosmetic fixes or issues, you're spending evenings, weekends dealing with all the things you never want to deal with. And after all that, your house still is not even truly turnkey, and you're still not getting that optimal price. You might even be getting less. So in that case, you have the worst of both worlds, right? It's not enough to attract the strongest buyers looking for those opportunities, those fixer-uppers, and it's not polished enough to fully satisfy those retail buyers. And that middle zone is the most dangerous zone to be in. That's where houses go soft, they go stale, they sit on the market. It's where time gets wasted heavily, and it's where you start to lose leverage as a seller. So what you really need to understand is this. Your fixer-upper property is not automatically a renovation problem. It may actually be a great opportunity if you position it the right way. And that's a very different mindset when you approach it that way. The right buyer does not see your outdated kitchen and think, I can't believe this mess. It doesn't see your basement and think, I can't believe this mess. The right buyer sees these things and they think, that's opportunity. I want to take on this project. I can see some profit in this. And the right buyer sees potential there. They see that upside. They see room to add value. They're looking for those things. And so that's attractive to that type of person. And so if your house has the right lot or the right location, good bones, those rough edges, that can be part of the appeal. That's why your house is not necessarily weaker because it looks tired or outdated. It may just be marketed the wrong way, or you may be thinking about it the wrong way. Some of the roughest houses, they sell the simplest and the fastest. And it's not because they just magically become beautiful. It's because there's competition for those type of properties. There's lots of buyers always looking for those projects. And they get put in front of buyers in the right way that want exactly what they are. It's not something trying to be something different. And you're not apologizing for the condition in that case. You're actually positioning it as an opportunity, and you're using that condition strategically. It's a much, much stronger way to sell that type of asset, and you're going to get better results. So I got to be clear on this, though. I'm not telling you to definitely go this route. Every fixer-upper, is a different scenario, and it doesn't mean you should skip marketing it fully on the MLS or anything like that. Every property is different. Every property in Burlington is a different animal and needs to be approached in a unique way. It's lazy advice to just think about this generically, but that's what a lot of people are going to probably tell you. But what I'm telling you is that don't assume that normal path is the smart path, or that path that everyone's telling you to take is the smart path. Sometimes the normal path is exactly what's going to cost you the most money, the most stress. So if your house is rough enough that you already feel overwhelmed a bit by the thought of getting it ready, the question to ask yourself is not what should I fix first, but the first question is, should you be fixing anything at all? That's the decision. And fixing nothing at all is often much simpler and cleaner. You could be one quote away, one contractor quote away from wasting $10, $20, $30, $50, $100,000 trying to force a result that just never is going to come anyways. And that's not even factoring in the time. So you don't want to keep carrying that stress, keep paying those bills, thinking about the property you already want off your plate. That's just a whole lot of costs. And there's something really psychological that happens when you own a rough house and you're starting to feel a bit embarrassed by it. You can start apologizing for it before anyone even sees it or says anything. You start feeling like you need to explain these flaws. And we see this very often in the market. And that mindset can be really dangerous. And it's one you got to be aware of first, and then know how you're coming into these conversations. Because the second you feel that bit of embarrassment or you're ashamed, you start making pretty weak decisions around this thing. And you don't want to be over-improving, over-explaining, overspending. You don't want to be, trying to rescue the house emotionally. That's when you're definitely going to get burned. So when you understand that your house may actually be an asset to the right buyer, you can change the way you approach this. You no longer need to feel embarrassed. You no longer need to feel misinformed. You're not trying to hide anything. You're now positioning the opportunity in the right way. And in lots of cases, that can be a much stronger place to operate from. So if you own a fixer-upper type property in Burlington and you're not sure whether you should renovate it, do a light cleanup, or just sell it as is, then don't guess. There's a link below this video where you can click a landing page. You can join us for a conversation, and we'll help you figure out your house specifically, what it's really worth in its current state, what it could be worth in a more optimal state, and what makes the most sense for you and what strategy to approach this with.